Hello, welcome. Thank you for joining me. My name is Lauren and I will be guiding you through a gentle yoga practice focused on our sacral chakra, which is our second of the 7 chakras. The sacral chakra, I'm not going to talk too much about what it is and represents. I'm just going to give you sort of the bullet points, the highlights. I'll link some stuff below if you're interested in learning more about it, which I do encourage you to do. But it rests low in your belly and at the low belly, and it's often associated with orange, the color orange, and is associated with a handful of things. So mostly emotions, relationships, sex and sexuality, and creativity. So creativity is what we're going to focus on today in this sequence. So again, this all comes back to the sacral chakra, low in the belly, but we're going to focus on creativity. I think that with group classes, no matter if it's yoga or fitness or whatever, anytime there's an instructor, students sometimes give all of their creativity up to the instructor, and sometimes that's what students are looking for. I know even sometimes myself, I'm like, I just want to be told what to do. I don't want to, like, I get it. I really do. But this is not that sequence. This is not that class. This sequence, I want you to be creative, and I want you to think about ways that you like moving, what feels good, what resonates with you, what are new, different ways you can move, what are some old ways you can revisit, maybe you haven't moved in a while. So the sequence is very loosely structured. It was maybe one of the easiest sequences I've ever had to write. I'm going to give you a lot of creativity. Of course, I'll give you suggestions and some options, but it really is about moving how it feels good for you, because I want you to regain some of that creative control and remember that you are in the driver's seat of not just your yoga practice, but your body. Something that I like to say in my my classes with beginning students is you have full autonomy and authority over your body all of the time. And anytime someone is asking you to move your body, whether that's a yoga teacher, a dance teacher, a physical therapist, a massage therapist, whatever, when someone's asking you to move your body, you are in control. Whatever the other person is saying are suggestions, and whatever we're doing should not cause pain. You guys know that. But so not only do you have that autonomy and the power, which actually is some foreshadowing, that's the next chakra, but you have creative power, you have creative control. So that's sort of where we're going with this. I think that's all of it. That's my chakra spiel. So we're going to start on our backs. I always like to have 2 blocks and a blanket. You don't need any of these things, but we are going to start on our backs. So let's come on down. Just make yourself comfortable. Okay. So come down into a comfortable reclined position, somewhere where you can rest, somewhere where you can relax. Let your eyes softly close. And tap into your breath. Really feel your breath. Notice and observe your breath. And start by noticing something subtle. Like, are you breathing through your nose or your mouth? And then notice if your breath makes a sound or if it's silent. And now let's notice
where we're breathing into. So here, let's bring the left hand on the belly, but above the belly button. And bring the right hand at the low belly, below the belly button. So left hand above the belly button, right hand below the belly button. Let the elbows rest on the ground. So if your hands are a little off-centered, if your hands are more on the hip and the ribs, that's okay. And breathe naturally and just feel your breath. Really, truly feel your breath. Imagine that your breath is something tangible, something you could hold in your hands, and imagine feeling it in your hands as you're breathing. Feel it in the belly. Notice any pattern, any rhythm. Notice your breath. Okay, and you can always just stay with your natural breath, just as you are right here. Or maybe start to draw some energy and attention down to the sacral chakra. And imagine sending your breath down to the right hand, below the belly button, deep down by the sacrum, down by your tailbone, down closer to the base of your spine. So that with every inhalation, the right hand rises a little bit more up towards the ceiling. And as you exhale, the right hand falls a little bit closer down to the floor. So as you're moving through these deep belly breaths, make sure that the breath is creating the movement. Sometimes with these belly breaths, we create this movement in the muscles and we sort of contract or expand by moving through the muscles, but allow the breath to let the belly rise and let it fall. Instead of creating it and forcing the movement, let the breath do the work. And maybe your right hand doesn't move very much. That's okay. Just think about sending your energy, sending your attention down to this sacral chakra. Let's stay with it for just a few more breaths. Take 3 more breaths, just like this. And then slowly release those belly breaths. Allow your arms to come alongside your body with your palms up. Come back to your natural breath and just notice how you feel. Now, if it feels right for you in this moment, you're welcome to set an intention for your practice. Thinking about a positive word or phrase. And silently and slowly repeat it a few times to allow it to settle in your heart. Start to deepen your breath again. Really fill your lungs with breath. And as you feel your torso moving with your breath, create some movement, maybe through the shoulders, the arms, the fingers, the legs, the toes. Blink the eyes open, rock the head side to side. And take a few moments moving in any way that feels good. Take a few breaths here. Maybe hug the knees in, maybe take a full body stretch. Stay wherever you're at for about one more breath. All right. Okay, and we'll all meet with the knees bent, feet flat on the ground. So we'll all start moving through the warm-up together. This is a little more structured. We'll have some set movements to go through here, and then you're gonna let your creativity go wild later. Okay, so knees bent, feet flat. Take a deep breath in. As you breathe out, hug your right thigh in towards your belly. Hold on to the back of the thigh as opposed to the top of the shin. Hugging that thigh in, either hugging it in tightly or allowing the thigh to come away from the belly. It doesn't matter to me. Maybe you even use a strap or a towel or a blanket, whatever you need. But hugging that thigh in, you're going to keep your thigh still. Inhale as you reach your right foot up for the ceiling. Exhale, bend the right knee. Heel comes down to the back of the thigh. Inhale, reach the right foot up for the ceiling. Exhale, bend the right knee. Now keep moving with your breath. Inhale to lengthen the leg. Exhale, bend the knee. Now, wherever you've placed your thigh, whether it's away from your belly or hugged in tightly, I want you to think about keeping your thigh still. So the thigh is going to remain still. You're just moving at the knee joint, not the hip joint. Okay, that's going to ensure that we are getting into the hamstrings. Hamstrings are a muscle group that you know are tight on most people, so I like to make sure we are giving them some attention. Let's do this about 2 or 3 more times, just like this. Keep relaxing the shoulders, soften through the arms. Feel that stretch in the leg. Now the next time your leg lengthens and you're reaching your foot up for the ceiling, let's move the foot. So point and flex the foot. Do a really strong point, toes to the sky, a really strong flex, toes pointing down back towards your face. Do this a few more times. Okay, and then do some ankle circles. Pick one direction, rotate it around. Do really large circles, do one more, and then reverse the direction of the circle. Really large circles. Just because they're large circles doesn't mean they have to be fast. For some reason, students often confuse those two. Okay, and then bring the foot to stillness. And now let's keep the ankle still. Spread your toes away from each other. Draw them out wide. Create space between the toes, as much space as you can. And then crunch your toes in tightly. Reach your toes away from each other. Crunch them in tightly like you're making a fist with your foot. Do this a few more times. And if this is something that you think to yourself, I want to focus on this more, or my feet, you know, if you've got foot issues, those little spacers that they give you when you get a pedicure, wear those like around the house if you can. Or it's uncomfortable to walk in them, but maybe as you're sitting on the couch or whatever, that'll help. Okay, so now keep the leg long and extended, relax the foot, but lengthen the leg, reach the heel up for the ceiling, take a deep breath in. And as you breathe out, hug the knee deeply in towards the chest, bending at the knee. You're gonna bring your right hand onto your right kneecap and just let your left arm release. Maybe the left hand comes to the belly or the hip, or just relaxing it down. The right hand on the right kneecap, trace some circles with your right knee. So now we're moving through the hip joint. We were doing the knee joint before, now we're focusing on the hip joint. So just use your arm to sort of push and pull the leg around, doing some circles. And then make sure to go in the opposite direction. Keeping your torso not necessarily still, it'll move a little bit, but we want to keep it on the ground. Your torso should be all on the ground. Okay, and then eventually land in figure four. Bring your right ankle to the top of the left thigh. Softly flex your right foot to protect your right knee. You can stay here. We typically come to this pose at the end of the class when you're really warmed up. We're not that warmed up, right? So you're not gonna hug that leg in really tightly. I'm actually gonna have you do a hands-free version of this pose. So with the arms alongside the body, you absolutely could just stay here. Maybe you keep the left foot on the ground and maybe you let the legs sort of rock and sway side to side. Maybe you let the left foot come up off the ground, but again, without using your arms, hugging the leg in, drawing this figure four shape in the left thigh into the belly. And then again, maybe letting the legs sort of move around. Maybe this figure four shape in the legs traces circles, goes side to side, sort of moves around. Of course, if you're doing circles, go to the opposite direction. But just explore what it feels like in this right glute to take different variations of this shape. Noticing that each angle changes the shape a little. Okay, stay for one more breath. All right, and then slowly let that left foot come back down onto the ground. Right foot returns to the ground. Take a deep breath. Okay, second side, inhale. Exhale, hug the left thigh in towards your belly. Hold on to the back of the thigh as opposed to the top of the shin. And maybe if you're interlacing your fingers, you slide your fingers over one, take the other grip. Now relax the shoulders. You might be hugging the thigh in tight to your belly, or it might be farther away. It does not matter to me. It doesn't make a difference to me, but I want you to just keep the thigh still. And then inhale, reach your left foot up for the sky, lengthen the leg. Exhale, bend the knee, let the heel come down to the back of the thigh. Move with your breath. Inhale, lengthen. Exhale, bend. So hugging that thigh in or letting it stay away from the belly is going to change the stretch. And again, it doesn't matter to me which one you take. I want you to take what feels good. But hugging the thigh in and keeping the thigh in tight, you're not going to be able to straighten the leg. And that's okay. That's okay. I think when we do this movement, students often get hung up on their leg becoming a straight line, and it does not have to do that. It probably will not. And it will certainly not if you keep the thigh hugged in. So just an FYI there. All right, let's do this about 2 more times. Keep the shoulders relaxed, arms relaxed. Just moving with your breath, feeling this opening in the back of that left leg. And then the next time your left leg lengthens, keep it there. Let's point and flex the foot. So again, keep relaxing the shoulders, relax the arms, but point and flex the foot. Point the toes to the sky and then back down at your face. Do 1 more of each. And then ankle circles, rotate it around, pick one direction. Make really large circles. Again, large is not the same as fast. Large circles and then reverse the direction of the circle. 1 more like this. And then keep the foot still, ankle still, heel still. Spread your toes wide away from each other. Reach them out, 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 and then crunch them in tight. Make a fist with your foot. Spread your toes out wide, reach them away, crunch them in tight. Do this a few more times. So again, if as you're looking at your toes and you're thinking, oh, they're not going that far away from each other, you could do this, but you could also wear those little things. I don't know what they're called. They make this like really expensive device that does it, but you could just use the little foam things that you get at a pedicure. Okay, relax your feet, relax your foot, lengthen the left leg. Inhale, exhale, hug the left leg in towards the belly, hug it in tight. Use your left hand to grab onto the left kneecap. Right arm can just rest alongside the body, your hand at the hip, wherever it likes to be. But use your left hand on the left kneecap to trace some circles with the left hip. So like that left kneecap is tracing circles, sort of pushing and pulling with that left arm. We already moved at the knee, now let's move at the hip. But again, keeping your torso on the ground. So the back of the right hip, or sort of the right side of the sacrum, right shoulder, left shoulder, all still down on the ground, at least those four corners. Make sure you do these hip circles in both directions. Just allowing that leg to move around, open up through that hip, and then eventually find figure four. Left ankle to the top of the right thigh, softly flex the left foot. So again, hands free. You absolutely could just stay here, right foot on the ground, maybe let your legs sort of sway, and you just stay here. Maybe the right foot comes up off the ground. Maybe you just allow your legs to come into the belly, but maybe you have some movement. And so with this sequence, I'll be, of course, again, asking you to just sort of move in a creative way. Most of the time that probably will mean fluid, constant movement, but it doesn't have to be. If you're going to be watching me while I'm moving, I'm going to move in ways that feel good for me and my body, which generally these days is constant fluid movement. But I just want to say now that that doesn't mean that that's what you have to do. Okay. So eventually let that right foot come back down onto the ground. Let the left foot come back down onto the ground. Take a deep breath. Inhale. Exhale, hug both legs in towards your belly. You can have the hands on the shins, on the knees, on the backs of the thighs. And then again, take what feels good, movement or stillness. You can do some more in the feet and ankles and toes. Maybe you take happy baby, maybe you stay in Apanasana. But take about 2 or 3 breaths. Okay. And we're going to come up to a comfortable seat. So you can rock through to the center, or you can push yourself over to the side and lift yourself up. And just a quick note on that, something I'm working on in my own practice. And whenever I do something like that, I like to spread the love and try to encourage students to do the same. Try to roll over to the opposite side when you come up to a seat, whether it's midway through the practice or at the end. Try rolling over to the other side. You probably are always rolling over to the same side over and over. You'll be surprised how different it feels to roll to the opposite side. Okay, take a comfortable seat. Sit however feels good. We're going to be here for a little bit. I always like to suggest elevating the hips. Your hips are a little warmed up, but take what feels good. Let your legs relax, lengthen up through the crown of the head. We're going to move through neck, shoulders, and wrists, moving however you like to move. So your options for your neck stretches are thinking about rotating, doing some circles. You can do a spiral starting with small circles and then gradually getting bigger, going in both directions. Maybe you keep the spine tall and long and then just let the ear fall over to one side. And then maybe as you do that, you play with where you're looking, where your gaze is. Maybe you drop the chin of the chest. Maybe you look up. Maybe you draw your forehead forward. Maybe you draw your forehead back. But just start to move your neck. So again, we're going to start with the neck, then we're going to focus on the shoulders, then we're going to go to the wrists. So focus on your neck right now. So again, that could mean moving. That could mean staying still. Whatever feels good in your body is how I want you to move. So tapping into body awareness. And also again, creativity. Maybe there's a way you want to move that I haven't suggested, that I did not just list. You can do that. Move in ways that feel good. Again, ways that resonate with you. Because as a yoga teacher, like I just said, what I teach and what I encourage my students to do is really a reflection of my own personal practice. But my body is different from yours. And so your practice should reflect your body, right? And so that's what I want you to take this power back, right? Take it back from me. You should get it. So let's stay for maybe about 10 more breaths. So if you were doing something asymmetrical, make sure you switch sides. And as we're focusing on the neck, make sure the rest of the spine is still tall and long. Keep lifting the chest, relaxing the shoulders. Let's take about 3 more breaths. And then eventually return with your neck and your head back in the center, back in neutral, reaching the crown of the head up, soften the shoulders away from the ears. Take a deep breath. Okay. All right, now we're gonna do the same thing with the shoulders. We won't spend as much time here. So shoulders, the big one that people always like to do is roll the shoulders out. Now you can do one at a time. Sometimes I like to do that. I like to really give a lot of focus on one shoulder and then the other. So then I feel like each one gets a little more intensity, right? Instead of dividing it, or maybe it feels better to do them both together. Maybe you just lift and lower, up and down, and then go forward and back. They don't have to be circles, right? Maybe you involve your arms and you reach your fingertips back, you reach your fingertips forward. So take movements that feel good in your shoulders. Again, we won't be here as long as we were for the neck. That was, I think, a little bit of me because it was feeling really good in my neck and I wanted us to stay a little longer. This is exactly what I mean. So taking your practice back. So it's yours is reflective of what you want. That's what your practice should be. That's what your yoga practice should look like. Okay. So if you're doing something asymmetrical, go ahead and switch sides. Or go in the opposite direction. Wherever you're at, stay with it. Keep focusing on the shoulders. Let's stay for about maybe 5 more breaths, right where you're at. Keeping up that attention in the shoulders. Slowly return all the way back with your arms resting, shoulders relaxed. Again, lengthen up through the crown of the head. Take a deep breath. All right. Now let's do the same thing for our wrists. We don't have quite as many options for our wrists, but here's a few. You could, depending on how you're positioned, if the mat is accessible for you, you might take some of these wrist stretches that we've done before. So you might sort of make that fist. You might do movements here. You might just pull here with your hand and do it forward. You might take this one, and I'll walk you through this one. Sometimes this gets a little thrown out, but you've got all these sort of, you can push and pull and use the floor and use your arm. Maybe you focus more on the fingers as opposed to the wrists, but anything that feels good, just circles. This is another good one, interlacing the fingers and sort of allowing them to trace this figure 4. But the one I'll walk you through this, you don't have to do this one, but this one sometimes trips people up. Starting with fingers forward, palms face away from each other, thumbs down. Cross the right arm on top of the left, interlace the fingers. Think about next time interlacing them the other way, and then threading the hands through. Do this a handful of times and then switch sides. So wherever you're at, again, we won't be here too long.
lengthen up through the crown of your head. Relax your shoulders. Soften through the arms. Even if you're using the arms and hands and wrists and fingers, can you soften a little bit? Okay. Make sure you're switching sides, alternating, whatever you gotta do. And then check in with your breath. Make sure your breath is smooth and fluid, that you're never holding your breath, that even if you're holding a pose and holding your body still, you're not holding your breath. Let's stay wherever we're at. Keep it up for about 5 more breaths, focusing on your wrists. When you're ready, eventually return back, just resting your hands on your lap, on your thighs. Let the eyes softly close and come to some stillness. Come to this comfortable seat, lengthening up through the crown of the head. Relax the throat, the neck, and the jaw. Soften the shoulders, the arms, the wrists, and the hands. Notice how you feel. Take a deep breath here. And then slowly let your eyelids flutter open. Okay, let's keep moving. So let's set up in tabletop. We're gonna be kneeling for a little bit. So you might put a little cushion under your knees. But come on into tabletop. Set up on all fours. And now I want you to move your spine in any creative way that's comfortable. So of course there's the classic cat and cow. And just because something is done frequently and it's common, doesn't mean it's not worth your time. I think with fitness and yoga, there's this focus on what's new, what's flashy, what's trendy, what's cool. Cat and cow might not be any of those things, but I would say this is the #1 stretch. This is what I always recommend students do if you want to do yoga at home. Cat and cow, it's simple and effective and easy and feels good. And so maybe you're like, give me cat and cow. That's perfectly fine. Maybe you take this sort of sideways cat and cow where you draw your shoulders to the same hip, look over your shoulder like you're looking at your foot, and then come to the center and switch sides. Maybe it feels good to take the rotation and from tabletop you reach one arm up towards the sky and thread it through. But here we're gonna stay for a while because I want you to really move in any way that feels good. Another one here that you can do is think about your ribs dropping to the floor and then over to the right, and then over to the sky, and then to the left, and back to the floor. And then think about smoothing it out, and can your ribs spiral around like your rib cage is moving in a circle? And then of course reversing the direction of the circle. But for the next several moments, I want you to move your spine in a way that feels good and takes very little work. That's sort of my stipulation here. Move your spine in a way that feels good and takes very little work. Now, whatever you're choosing to do, there are several spaces you can check in within your body, regardless of what you're doing. The first thing to check in with is your breath. Check that your breath is smooth and fluid. You're not holding your breath. Your breath is constant
fluid, comfortable, smooth, easy, and relaxed. And maybe if you're choosing to move, because remember, you've always got the option to stay still, that if you're choosing to move, maybe you synchronize your breath and your movement together. That's an option. But continue to remember to check in with your breath. And then once you feel stable in your breath, at the very least, you can relax the muscles of your face. You can relax your throat, neck, and jaw. And maybe you can even relax your shoulders. And if you are in tabletop, with the hands or even one hand on the ground, make sure you're spreading your fingers. Distribute the weight of your body across the whole hand, not just the wrist. Your wrists should be comfortable and warmed up, but we still don't want to overload them. So spread the fingers, push even the fingertips into the ground. We'll stay for about 5 to 10 more breaths. So finish up any uneven, asymmetrical movements. All right, now we're going to rest because we're going to come back into tabletop, but I do want to give your wrists a break. So take some sort of resting pose. That might mean flipping on your back and coming to constructive resting pose. Might mean just taking a child's pose, but again, just maybe 5 to 8 breaths in something that allows your wrists to take a break. Maybe if you're in child's pose, you let the palms face up. Maybe you bend your elbows, let your hands come by the backs of your shoulders. Take some deep breaths. Take one more deep breath. Okay, and then let's come back into tabletop. So bringing your hands down, lifting yourself back up. Now we're going to be in tabletop again. Now this time, I want you to be in tabletop, but I want you to work a little bit. So we're going to take a spinal balance, and then you can choose where you want to go from there. Let me just quickly show you the options before you're in it. So of course, we always start with one arm forward, one leg back. You could stay still. You could draw everything into the belly. This is sort of the typical traditional thing you often see. You also could keep everything long and lower to the floor, keeping the arm and the leg long, and lift and lower there. You also, final option that I'll show you here, is lengthening everything out, keeping everything lifted and long, but go to the side and return to the center. So you've got all those options. You don't even have to pick one now. Pick it maybe when you're in the moment. That's all right. But start in tabletop. Push your hands down, lift up and out of your armpits. Look at the tip of your right thumb. Look at the tip of your right thumb. Reach your left fingertips forward, thumb to the sky. Now you could stay here, or you might lengthen your right leg back, pushing through that right heel. Toes point down to the floor. Now again, I want you to work. So you could stay here. You absolutely could stay here and just stay still and work.
Or you can take any one of those movements or create your own. Doesn't matter to me. I want you to move in a way that feels good and feels creative for you in this moment. We are going to stay for about 5 more breaths. So pick where you want to be. Movement, stillness, working, taking any one of those movements, but stay with it. Take one more deep breath here. And then return back to the center, lengthening left fingertips forward, right heel back. Inhale, exhale, drop the hand and the knee back down to the ground. Good, maybe roll out that wrist. Okay. All right, same thing second side. So start in tabletop. Look at the tip of your left thumb. Reach your right arm forward, fingertips forward, like you're gonna shake someone's hand. You could do just the arm, you absolutely could, or maybe you lengthen the left leg back, push through the left heel, left toes point down to the ground. Now again, you could stay here. That's what I'm probably gonna do. I'm just gonna stay still, but maybe you take any one of those movements, taking any movement, lifting, lowering, in and out, side to side, but I want you to feel like you're working. So keep pushing that left hand down, lift up and out of the armpit. Keep the spine long, chest lifted, crown of the head forward. You're looking down again at your left thumb. Reach the left heel back. Push through that heel once you lengthen that leg. Let's stay for about 5 more breaths, just as you are. Feel that work in your core, the work in that left arm. You've got it. Keep breathing. Stay with it. 1 more breath. And then come back where we started. Right arm forward, left leg back. Hold it for 1 breath. And then slowly return, hand and the knee. Again, maybe roll out your wrist, take a child's pose. Take a movement that feels good in your body in this moment. Okay, now we're gonna stay kneeling a little bit longer. So I would keep something under your knees. And we're gonna take some low lunges. I always like to have the blocks handy for the low lunges, but if you don't have blocks, you don't need them. Okay, but let's step our left foot forward, taking a low lunge. So make sure that the left foot steps forward enough so that the heel and the knee are stacked. And I know it's a little hard for you to see in your own body. You might be able to look sideways, but an easy sort of tell is your left toes. Can you easily wiggle your toes? If so, wonderful. If not, crawl the left foot forward a little bit more. Okay. Now, all I'm asking of you is this position. You get to choose what you want to do. So I like to really focus on the hip flexor in these lunges, but maybe you want to take a different version of a lunge. You might take a quad stretch. Make sure that you really roll forward on the front of the right knee, not on the top of the kneecap. That's not going to feel good. So roll forward. Maybe you focus on taking a quad stretch, something here like that. Maybe you bring the hands up to the left thigh and you can move your pelvis around here. Maybe you tuck and untuck, right side, left side, roll it around. Just again, feeling everything where it's at. What does this do? What does that do? What happens if I do this? Maybe you take some movements here in your upper body, goalpost, lifting up, taking a side stretch. If you're going to take a side stretch here, you would place your left hand either on a block or your left thigh and reach the right arm up and over, really lengthening through the right side. But take something that feels good. Movement, stillness. You've got a lot of options. We'll stay here for a while. Okay, so wherever you're at, again, if it feels good to just pick a pose, stay with it for maybe 5 breaths and then move to another one. That's generally sort of how yoga classes kind of normally go, right? And you can do that, or you can just sort of keep exploring, just keep moving around. Again, whatever feels good, but wherever you are, wherever you happen to be at any point, keep breathing. Keep checking in with your breath. Now here, as you're moving and as you're focusing on poses, your breath is not going to be that deep. They're not really going to be belly breaths. It's going to be a little more challenging to breathe down below the belly button. It's actually, in this position, a little hard to even breathe near the belly button at all. So we're just looking for smooth, fluid breaths. So you know that you're connecting your breath, your body, you've got that mindful connection. Okay, we're gonna stay on this right side, focusing on this right leg, about 10 more breaths. So start to finish anything up. Take about 3 more breaths where you're at. And then let's slowly return back into this low lunge with the hands down. And we're just gonna let that left knee come back. Take a little bit of time before we switch sides. So when you come to the second side, when you're taking these movements and sort of just being creative about what feels good, what do I want to do, what's resonating with me, it might not match right to left, and that's okay. Go ahead when you're ready, step that right foot forward. So sure, in an ideal world, your two sides would crave the same thing and require the same thing, but you know, that's not true. They're different, they want different sides, they're used to different things. So just give each side what it wants, even if it's different from the other side. So, right here, again, maybe this is an option I don't often give, but you're welcome to sort of roll forward and letting that left knee bend. Maybe you take that quad stretch. It'll help if that right arm is up a little bit more and the upper body is up. And then you'll feel a stretch through the top of the thigh, of the back thigh. Maybe you focus there. You absolutely could. Maybe you stay low. You take some inner thigh stretch. Maybe you come up high, right hand comes down onto the thigh or a block or the ground. Maybe left fingertips sweep up and over. What I like to do here, this is again sort of my latest thing, is just here in this low lunge, but just move the pelvis around, sort of loosen everything up, forward, back, side to side, circles, squares, diamonds, whatever sort of shape you can move in, just move in it. Joint mobility is something we often say, you don't use it, you lose it. So if you don't move in a way, pretty soon you won't be able to move in that way. So move in every kind of way so you're covered, right? That's the way I think of it. So just move around, focusing on your pelvis, your hips, and just now focusing on the legs. And again, tapping into that creativity. What's coming to your mind? Maybe it's something you've never seen before, but you're feeling drawn to try it. Go ahead and try it. Trust yourself. This is a lot about trusting yourself, that you are secure in your body awareness, your knowledge of yourself. You trust that you have your own best interest at heart, right? So you have to put not only a little bit of that creativity and that power back, but just that trust. You trust yourself. Move around. See what your body needs. We'll stay for about 10 more breaths.
more breaths, focusing on your legs, taking what feels good, what calls to you, where it resonates with you. One more breath. Okay, and then let's come back to this low lunge and then back to tabletop. Take any movement that feels good. Roll out the wrists. Whatever you gotta do. Take about 5 breaths. All right. Okay, if you've got something under your knees, I think it might get in the way, so I would push it off to the side. And you probably won't need your blocks. We're gonna make our way up to standing. So from tabletop, walk your hands one whole handprint closer to the top of your mat. Now you're welcome to grab onto your blocks, step 1 foot forward to the low lunge, take a high lunge, and then step forward. Or if down dog is in your practice, take a down dog. Now wherever you're at, down dog, if you're already in forward fold, if you're in the lunge, take your time getting to forward fold. Take about 10 to 15 breaths, moving in a way that feels good for your body to get there. So maybe hang out in down dog. Maybe take a funky transition to get into forward fold, maybe one you've never taken before. Maybe once you're in forward fold, you do some creative movements there. But about 10 more breaths, and we'll all eventually get into forward fold. Okay, by now you should be in forward fold, and if not, start to make your way there. Come on into forward fold. We'll take about 3 more breaths here in forward fold. Okay, now from forward fold, firmly push the feet into the floor. Inhale, lift up halfway, lengthen your spine. Exhale, fold forward. Now push the heels into the floor. Inhale, rise all the way up, circle the arms. Maybe even look up and take a back bend. Bring your hands to your heart and take a deep breath. Okay, so our last standing pose, or I guess really our only standing pose, is a balance pose, and it can be whatever balance pose you want. So really simple is just standing on one foot and picking one foot up off the ground, just right here. It doesn't even have to be a pose, right? I just want you to work on your balance in some capacity. So of course, just picking the foot up off the ground, classic tree pose. I think we worked on this last month, hugging the knee into the belly, either in front of you, to the side with a straight leg, a bent knee. We've got chair pose with one leg, figure 4 chair pose. Quad stretch that I mentioned in the lunge, you could take a standing quad stretch, which is a stretch and a balance pose. So I will kind of watch the clock, make sure we do about the same amount of time on each side, because I don't know if we were for some of those stretches, but that's okay. So wherever you're at, you might already be in the pose, but just make sure you start feet hip distance, toes forward. So whatever pose you're in, I can almost guarantee this is where you got to start, right? So start with that foundation, shift the weight into one foot,
and then lift that other one off the ground. Maybe it just hovers again. Maybe it just hovers in front of the floor, or I'm sorry, in front of you, just above the floor. And you just focus on standing on one foot, just like this. Absolutely a valid option. Maybe you do something with your leg. Maybe you don't. But make sure you're looking at something that won't move. Maybe it's up in a way where the wall meets the ceiling. Maybe it's down in a way where the wall meets the floor. But pick a spot, focus on it, and then check in with your breath. Keep pushing that right heel down, whatever foot, down into the ground. Push the heel down, make sure you can wiggle your toes. Maybe there's a soft bend in your knee. Lengthen up through the crown of the head. And let's stay for 3 more breaths, wherever you're at. And then slowly, one body part at a time, start to slowly release out of the pose, eventually letting both feet come flat onto the floor. And then take a movement that feels good before we switch sides. So maybe you move the hips around, maybe an ankle circle. Now here is where I do want you to take the same pose on the second side. When it's something especially that is strength-based, and like what we're doing now, I want you to match, right? So the stretches, there's a little more flexibility there, but with the strength stuff, I want it to match. So take the same thing. Now, within that though, maybe on the first side, your tree pose was a little lower, and maybe the second side, it can be a little higher. That doesn't have to match. They don't have to be the same level. I just want you to take the same shape, more or less. I think you know what I mean. Okay, so same thing, feet hip distance, weight back in the heels. You can wiggle your toes. Stand up tall. Start with a strong foundation. Start stable and strong and rooted and grounded. And then shift your weight into the opposite foot, slowly lifting that leg up. And again, take the same pose, but it might be a different variation. It might look different, but it is still the same general shape. Okay. And then sort of scanning the body. I don't even know what pose you're in, but I can tell you that you should be able to wiggle your toes of the standing leg, that you should be pushing your heel into the floor, lengthening up through the crown of the head so that your tailbone and the crown of the head are pulling in opposite directions. Lift the chest, broaden through the collarbones, relax the shoulders. Keep your eyes on a fixed spot, something that won't move. And check in with your breath. It might not be a deep breath, but make sure that your breath is fluid. You're not holding your breath. Let's stay here for 3 more breaths. And then slowly start to release, unwind, and then take a movement that feels good. So again, I don't know what pose you were in, but I bet the standing leg feels like it was really working hard here. That's your glute medius, and that's a good thing. If you didn't feel that, that's okay. It doesn't mean you weren't working. It doesn't mean you were doing it incorrectly. It just does work, and maybe you feel it work. So it always sometimes feels good to let the hips go side to side. Take another breath or two. Okay. All right, then come on back to the top of your mat, facing forward. Start in Tadasana, feet hip distance. Push the heels into the ground, stand up tall. Relax the shoulders. Take a deep breath. Inhale, circle the arms, reach fingertips to the sky, maybe even look up. Exhale, hinge at the hips, fold forward, Uttanasana. Inhale, lift up halfway.
Exhale, we're meeting in tabletop. So maybe you take a down dog to get there. I feel like I'm craving for a down dog. But we're eventually going to meet in tabletop. Take several moments to get there. Maybe you take a tabletop and then do some cat and cows or whatever you need. About 3 more breaths. Okay, and then we'll meet in tabletop. And from tabletop, we're actually going to come to a seat. So let the legs come around. Okay. So actually, if you've got a block, you are going to need a block. I actually should phrase it that way. You're going to need a block or sort of a dense pillow, something like that. We're going to take a supported bridge. So something for that. And let's come down into our backs. I should actually preface, I'm going to give you lots of options. One of your options will eventually be legs up the wall. So sometimes it's easier to move before you get too relaxed. So if you want to move to a wall, I would do that now. But if you don't want to move to a wall, you don't have to. You're just going to come down to your back. All right. So we're going to all take a few moving bridges together. So start with your knees bent, feet flat, feet and knees hip distance, toes forward, arms alongside the body, palms down. Palms are down, but they're not pushing down. Let your arms relax. Now let's actually start with a few pelvic tilts. So inhale, lift your lower back, point your belly button at your thighs. Exhale, tuck the tailbone, push the lower back down like you're pointing your belly button towards your face. Do a few more like this. Inhale, point your belly button at your thighs, arch your back. Exhale, push your back into the floor, belly button to the face. Just a few more like this, just a couple. So this is a small movement here. We're focusing on our pelvis. In a moment, we're going to make it bigger into a bridge and add more of the spine. But this is a good little warm up, a little preview for our spine. Do one more of each. And then return in the center, back at neutral, so you're neither lifting nor lowering. Just right in a happy medium. Okay. So we are going to start with one pelvic tilt, and then we'll go right into moving bridges. So inhale again, lift your lower back, point your belly button to your thighs. Exhale, push your lower back into the floor, point your belly button towards your face. Now keep that tuck of the tailbone, belly button to the face. Push the feet into the floor. Inhale, lift your seat, lift your hips, lift your lower back, your mid back, your ribs, lift up. Squeeze your glutes at the top. Keep the tuck of the tailbone, belly button to the face. As you exhale, slowly drop the ribs, the mid back, the low back, the hips, but keep that tuck of the tailbone. Push the feet into the floor. Inhale, lift, reach, rise, squeeze your glutes at the top. Keep the tuck of the tailbone, belly button to the face as you slowly lower. Now do a handful more, moving with your breath. Evenly pushing your feet into the floor, evenly pushing between your right and your left. One side is probably more dominant and wants to take on more work. So evenly distribute right to left, and then also evenly distribute within each foot. Are you pushing all of your weight into the big toe side or to the pinky toe side, supinating or pronating? Even it out right to left. Keep the shoulders and arms relaxed, but work through the legs. Make sure the glutes are squeezing at the top. Do one more moving bridge, just like this. Make it a good one. Really lift, reach, rise, squeeze, engage, and then slowly release. Come all the way down. Come into constructive resting pose. Bring the feet wide to the edges of your mat. Let the knees knock in. Take some deep breaths. another breath here. All right. Now bring your feet and knees back to hip distance. And we're going to take a supported bridge. So again, a block is ideal, but it doesn't have to be a block. If you have something other than a block, I love a good DIY yoga prop, DIY anything. Okay, so you're gonna grab onto your prop, push your feet into the floor, inhale, lift your hips, slide that prop underneath your sacrum. Your sacrum is not the same as your lower back. It is below your lower back. It is south of your lower back. So make sure the block is on the, especially if it's a block. The firmer, or if you're using like a book or a stack of books or something, the firmer the thing is, the more careful you need to be. I was doing my spiel real quick and fast, and sort of my, I always think of it like a tour guide group, you know, like the tour guides who run the groups, like they have their script. That's sort of my supported bridge with your sacrum. But actually, for real, I don't mean to dismiss it, especially if it's something really firm, okay? If you're using like a pillow, you don't really have to be that specific, okay? But something firm, we just have to make sure with your spine. All right, you've got lots of options. So you absolutely could stay here. I will probably just stay right here. My back has been, you know, giving me some trouble every once in a while. So I like taking mild stuff. My back really appreciates these mild stretches. It does a lot more good for me to stay in something mild. So I'm gonna stay here. But you've got lots of options. You might raise the height of the block. You might take two blocks and stack them on their lowest height, one on top of the other, like you would stack a stack of books. You might take a hip flexor stretch. I would suggest doing that one leg at a time at first, which would entail hugging one knee in towards your belly and lengthening the other leg out. The leg can be active or relaxed. Play with it, feel it out, see what you like. You could do this with both legs long, but again, I would do it with one leg at a time first. You've got options with your arms, goalpost, out in opposite directions alongside the body, whatever feels good. And then thinking of lengthening limbs, maybe you lengthen your legs and you reach your feet up for the sky. You take a version of legs up the wall. Maybe you actually let your legs rest a bit against the wall. Take something that feels good. And take something that feels good and is quite a bit of stillness. So unlike the rest of the sequence that we've already moved through, I want you to find some stillness now. Now that doesn't mean that you can't switch sides or move from one pose to the next, but when you get into a pose, allow yourself to find stillness within that pose for at least a few breaths. We've got some time here. So let yourself settle in. Every single pose that I have listed, that I just suggested, is a calming pose. And so that's what we're after. Now you can take a pose that I didn't list. You can take something that is of your own creation. But again, find stillness in it. Think about this pose as your guide into Shavasana, into the relaxing, cooling, calming portion of class. So let it be calm, relaxing, and easy. Now, if you have been doing something asymmetrical, make sure you are switching sides, probably about halfway. Keep checking in with your breath. deeper into your belly. Can you breathe a little fuller down towards that sacral chakra? Can you smooth out your breath? Allow your breath to be easy and relaxed. Allow yourself to soften. We'll stay for about 10 more breaths. So if you're in something asymmetrical, find something symmetrical, the same on your right and your left, for these last 10 breaths. Now from wherever you're at, slowly come back to supported bridge with your block on its lowest height and both feet flat on the ground. Find this position slowly and take several deep breaths, breathing down into the sacral chakra. Take one more breath here in supported bridge. Setu Bandha Sarvangasana. Okay. And then start to wiggle fingers and toes. Maybe rock the head side to side. Move around some of these spaces that maybe have been still. And then we'll remove the block. So push the feet into the floor. Inhale, lift the hips. Slide the block off to the side and exhale, slowly lower all the way down. Come back into constructive resting pose. Knees bent, feet flat, feet wide, knees knocking in. Inhale. Exhale, hug your knees in towards your chest. And like always, take any movement that feels good. So this is your last opportunity to take a movement that feels good before Shavasana. So maybe it's just Apanasana here, hugging the knees into the chest. Maybe rock side to side, maybe move through the toes, the feet, the ankles. Maybe hands on the knees and trace circles with your kneecaps. Maybe take one more full body stretch. Maybe take a happy baby. The possibilities are endless, but take about 5 breaths, being where you like. And settle into your Shavasana, which might be legs up the wall. Legs up the wall is a perfectly good alternative to a traditional Shavasana. So is constructive resting pose. Something else you might do is use props. You might put something under the backs of your knees with your legs long. You might place a blanket over you, a blanket under the back of the head, whatever works, whatever feels like it will allow you to get into that deep relaxation. Because in Shavasana, it's not about your body. So allow your body to come to stillness, settling into your Shavasana. And as we're wrapping up the Sacral Chakra sequence, we reflect that the Sacral Chakra represents emotions, relationships, sex and sexuality, and creativity. And as you're here in your Shavasana, maybe you tap into one of those things and you either create a mantra, an affirmation that you can silently and slowly repeat in Shavasana or off of your mat. I'll give you a few suggestions, but of course you are welcome to create your own. My emotions are free-flowing and balanced. I am a creative being. I embrace my sexuality. I allow my creativity to flow through me fully. I attract people who treat me with respect. My emotions are free-flowing and balanced. I am a creative being. I embrace my sexuality. I allow my creativity to flow through me fully. I attract people who treat me with respect. start to deepen your breath. And as you deepen your breath, imagine filling not only your lungs with your breath, not only your torso with your breath, but fill your whole body with breath, down to your toes, to your fingers, up to the crown of the head. Fill your body with breath. And then allow the body to move, to rock the head side to side. Run your thumbs over the rest of your fingers as you wiggle your toes. Roll wrists and ankles. Move arms and legs. You can take a full body stretch, reaching your fingertips and toes in opposite directions. Take a full, big, deep breath here. And as you breathe out, hug your knees into your chest. And slowly roll over onto either side in a topped fetal position. Keeping your eyes closed and using the strength of both arms, push down into the ground, come up to a comfortable seat. And take a moment here to thank yourself for making it to your mat today. Maybe reflect on your intention. Loka samasta sukhino bhavantu. May all beings everywhere be happy and free, and may the thoughts, words, and actions of my life contribute in some way to the happiness and freedom for all. And now let's join the hands together in front of the heart in Anjali Mudra. To seal our practice, we'll chant the sound of Om one time. You're welcome to join me or just listen, but Om is said to be the oldest and most sacred mantra, and it unites all of us together. We'll chant the sound of Om one time. Let's start with a deep and clearing breath. Inhale for Om. The light or the good in me acknowledges, respects, and bows to the light or the good in you. Namaste. Thank you so much for joining me. So again, that was a gentle sequence focused on the second chakra, root. The root's the first one, the sacral's the second. And so we're making our way up through the chakras, and so that was the sacral chakra, creativity. Again, I will link some stuff below in the comments for some more stuff about the sacral chakra. I think it's important to really have a well-rounded practice, and that means getting into the philosophy, the energetic stuff, and sort of, so take it or leave it, but that's what all that is about, and that's where we're going with it. And so I hope, at the very least, I hope it felt good. That's all we can really ask, right? So thank you so much for joining me. Have a wonderful day, and I hope to see you soon. Thank you. Bye.